All right, welcome back to the Fullcourt Report. It's your boy Chris, aka Toby, taking over, I guess, as a guest sort of host this week. But I'm joined by my two fellow friends, Justin and Jorie. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing real good, feller.
Doing exceptional, Tobe.
That's good to hear.
Asking.
That's good to hear. Now, since our last time on the show, obviously we all know what's been going on, playoff basketball. We got a better idea of sort of who we think is going to be in the finals, what teams we think aren't going to cut it, and we're going to have some spicy predictions coming up. So stay tuned for those. But I guess I'll start off with something outside of just inside the courts. Taking it over to Charles Barkley. On June 10th, he had some interesting comments made about the current and future outlook of the NBA and what his thoughts are on super teams. And here's what he had to say. He said, KD is a great player, and I think he's a great kid. He said, I don't know him that well, but I'm not a fan of super teams. So listen, if they win it, they win it. But to be perfectly clear, I'm rooting against those boys. I root against all super teams. If I'd known you guys were going to make fun of me for not winning a championship, I would have joined a super team back in my day. Me, Patrick Ewing, Karl Malone, and John Stockton. He said, but I feel good about my legacy. I'm pretty sure Patrick, John, and Karl do as well. He said LeBron started this super team thing in Miami. And hey, it's the way the game is played now. He then went on to say, when Kawhi Leonard left Toronto, other than Chicago, that's my favorite city to play in the world, but I'm never going there again. He said, when LeBron left Cleveland, I'm never going there again. When James Harden left Houston, I'm never going to Houston again. And he said, same thing about Miami, OKC when KD left. And he said, back in my day, even though we didn't win the championship, the Sixers were worth watching, the Knicks were worth watching, and the Pacers were worth watching when they had Reggie. He said nowadays young kids, they tend to fold to peer pressure and feel like they got to win a championship to make sure that their life doesn't suck. So, I mean, there's a lot to unravel there, obviously. It's a long statement. But what do you guys make of these comments? What are your biggest takeaways? And do you agree with his analysis? If so, what can be done with the future of the NBA?
I agree with Sir Charles. I think the way it was around when he played, where each team had, the one superstar and then maybe somebody behind them who was, a pretty solid player. Other than that, it was just role players, everybody just doing their job and let the big boys take over. And in my opinion, it just makes it more competitive because you'd have teams, they'd come into the playoffs and then they wouldn't be next year. And then somebody else come into the playoffs that they weren't there the year before. Now it's like you kind of know who's making the playoffs at the start of the season just based off of how many all-stars are on each team.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this. It's kind of, the one part about what I don't understand is how LeBron gets criticized so much for creating super teams, as if he was like the first person to ever think, it'd be a good idea. Let's get like a collection of good players and put them on the same team. Like, I'm pretty sure that's been a thing that's been in sports before like 2011 or 2010 when he did that. So I don't understand why he's like donned as the super team creator in the NBA. It's kind of strange, as if like teams like the Lakers in the 80s didn't have like multiple all-stars on their team, or the Celtics, or even like he might, like, you think of a team like the Lakers in the early 2000s, like Kobe and Shaq were surrounded by role players. but Kobe and Shaq were probably the two best players in the NBA at the time. And I just don't get why everyone is that part I don't get. But I think he's right about legacies and how we kind of talk or we kind of emphasize rings way too much in terms of legacies. Like I always thought it was weird how we couldn't like a player like Allen Iverson's legacy is quote unquote tarnished because he never won a championship. It's like a team sport. So why is a single player getting criticized for not being able to win a championship? I don't know. I always thought that was strange. So I think I agree with him in that part. But you need teammates that are like above average to win championships, and that's been a thing in every sport for many years. So the whole super team is weird.
I mean, I slightly agree with you in terms of that LeBron James criticism that you mentioned. I do think that's a little valid just because I don't think we've ever seen a superstar of his caliber, leave the team that drafted him, especially in the way that he did. I think that kind of made it more what's the word? Like it encouraged more superstars to start, wanting to go to new teams and play with new other superstar teammates. But the thing about this is like I don't know where the line is crossed between super team and just a team that's really good. You know what I mean? Like were the Bulls in the 90s a super team because they won 6 rings? Or were they just was that
that's hard to say because that's a combination of both, in my opinion, because their role players, Ron Harper and Steve Kerr, Paxson, all these guys, they're literally there for one reason, basically one reason only, but they're so good at that one thing. Like Dennis Rodman, if the guy wasn't, a crackhead, basically, that guy wouldn't have been nothing. Like if it weren't for how good of a rebounder and defender he was, that guy had no game.
But that's the thing. Like that's what we see specialists nowadays too. Like you could even say Draymond Green, like for the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, I agree, but I feel like players nowadays are kind of more well-rounded because I feel like the game has evolved. So like what I was saying earlier, each team had, the one or two superstars and then everybody else. Nowadays, it's like everybody is, like a average player on the team other than, obviously the 2-3 superstars that they have. There's no bums like there used to be.
So here's a question. Like, obviously it seems like you guys aren't huge fans of super teams, which I don't know why anybody would be. I'm not really one to talk being a Nets fan, but like, what do you think can be done to stop or to discourage? I should say maybe to cater to teams that are in lesser known, like Sacramento, Portland, those kind of teams. Like, what can be done to kind of encourage more players to go there or discourage stars from leaving those kind of places?
I'll let you.
It's hard. It's hard because when, like in LeBron's situation, when he left Cleveland, he obviously wanted to go to Miami. Like, who wouldn't want to leave Cleveland for Miami? But more times than not, it's the front office isn't catering to their superstars. When a guy like LeBron is like, yo, get me some help, please. One other guy that knows how to play the sport of basketball, and they don't do it year after year. Sooner or later, you're going to have to say, yeah, forget this town.
Okay, yeah, I got you there. But
Kobe, you're a baseball fan.
Yeah.
Do you think something like eliminating the salary cap like they do in the MLB could do away with super teams where you could just spend as much money as you want on a team?
I don't know, because that's tricky because
Do you think that would just make it worse?
Honestly, that might make it even worse because once you got teams like the Lakers, the Celtics, or even the Knicks, just throwing cash at, because they're the richest teams, obviously, they're going to have the most money to throw at these superstars. I don't know if that's going to be the right answer. Baseball is kind of weird though, because it's like it's less about. Well, I guess it's just about marketability. I don't know. I don't have the answers, but
I
like
have
I
a
said,
suggestion. I have a
Yeah.
suggestion about how to keep one team from getting too many stars. So you know how they have the rules where like you can't trade away multiple first round picks multiple years in a row, or like somebody has to be signed to your team for a certain amount of days before you can trade them again or something like that. They need to add a rule like that where, for example, if Kawhi leaves this season in free agency, this does not include getting traded. In free agency, let's say he leaves, he cannot sign to another team that already has 2 all-stars from that previous season. So he wouldn't be able to sign to a team like the Bucks or the Sixers.
I feel like that could have some weird ripple effects.
Yeah,
I don't know.
because like, what about teams if they already have 3 all-stars? Do they have to get rid of one of them? Like,
well, no, it would just, you wouldn't be able to sign there. If you were an all-star,
okay, that's
so like,
that's,
some guy like Reggie Jackson, if he wanted to sign with the Sixers, yeah, go ahead. But Kawhi want to, like, no, they already got 2 superstars out here.
Yeah, that, you know what, you might be onto something there. I think they would definitely have to, fine tune it, that system, but like, I think that might be a nice,
just a vague little idea,
Interesting.
Well, I mean, I guess we can sort of move on to the next topic. Moving on to, some of the games that we've been seeing recently in the playoffs. Denver Nuggets, Jorie's favorite team. They do play game 4 tonight. So technically it's not over yet, but currently they are down 0-3 to the Phoenix Suns. Provided a historic comeback doesn't occur for the Nuggets, obviously. As they enter the offseason, what do you expect? What kind of moves do you expect them to make as they look forward to contend for a championship next year? And I guess I'll start with you, Jorie, since you kind of have the inside scoops.
The inside scoops. Personally, I don't think they're gonna make like a bunch of roster moves. I wouldn't imagine they're gonna trade any kind of players or make some moves in free agency. I think the team that they have now is, built for a championship. I think really what needs to happen is just internal improvement. I've been talking about Michael Porter Jr. for the longest time, how he needs to get better as a shot creator and a ball handler. I think he is going to be the key to getting Denver back into like the top of the West next year without Jamal. Jokic is already, one of, if not the best player in the league. Aaron Gordon needs to step up. I think I like what I've seen from him kind of in the post. He's done that a lot in this series against the Suns. I feel like his jump shot was fraudulent, to say the least, in Orlando. Like, he was shooting something like 40% from 3 with the Magic. And I'm thinking we're going to get this like 3-and-D specialist on the Nuggets, and he's been shooting terrible from 3 since he's got there, even with, getting open looks with Jokic, and before Murray went down, like he was getting wide open looks and just wasn't knocking them down. If there's one player that I think the Nuggets could replace is Will Barton, just because he's dealt with so many injuries over the years. And I feel like he's just weird fit with the team. He's always kind of had a weird fit with the team. Like, he's like a tweener between like a shooting guard and a small forward. He's like kind of big enough to play against small forwards, but not really. And then he's not like a sharpshooter, and he kind of just takes away touches from Jokic and Porter Jr. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's a player they decide to move. But I think just internal improvement and getting healthy are the two biggest things for the Nuggets.
Yeah, I agree big time with the internal improvement. Because you guys do have a pretty solid roster. It's just not everybody's hit their prime yet. You have a really young team. But first question, does Michael Porter Jr. come off the bench or does he start?
He's a starter.
Okay, just because I didn't know if they had him at like a 6-man type deal. But
No, he's
okay. Then, in my opinion, you guys need a 6-man because from what I can tell, Monte Morris is your best bench scorer, and he cannot be the first option for your bench unit.
I mean,
I'm not saying get rid of him, but I'm saying you might need a better scorer.
I feel like you're probably right, but at the same time, like he's one of the most efficient like backup point guards. Like he comes in and does his job really well. Like I see what you mean. Like I do think that they would need a more just go get a bucket guy off the bench rather than like a playmaking, 6-foot point guard that can probably be neutralized pretty easily.
You
off the
also have
bench,
Campazzo too. Like,
yeah, weird. That was like I like Campazzo, but it's like weird having two guards that short, like, But I don't know. We'll see. I don't know what kind of maybe Austin Rivers. Austin Rivers. He said that he loves it in Denver and he's liked it ever since he signed there. So he's thinking of trying to come back next year. So maybe that could be the 6-man type. Just come in as a spark plug.
yeah, that'd be nice.
But we'll see.
And then perhaps a backup big man because I have no clue at all who's coming in when Jokic goes out.
It's generally Michael Green, but they don't. I mean, JaVale. They got JaVale at the trade deadline. He hasn't really been like playing much.
Oh yeah,
but yeah, it's really like JaMychal Green, Paul Millsap. They don't really have like a traditional backup.
Oh, you forgot about Paul. You guys are fine then. You guys got the big men that know what they're doing. But yeah, other than small little tiny moves, just make sure Jamal comes back and he's his old self.
And when is he supposed to come back? Is he going to come back like end of next year, right in the next season or something?
Well, I think since the NBA announced that their like schedule is going to revert back to normal, I think they saw that they're going to go back to like an October start. He's probably going to, I mean, I'm pretty sure he tore his ACL in like mid-April. So a player can obviously return anywhere from like 9 to 12 months. So he could be back in, who knows, like maybe March. But
probably come back All-Star break.
I would love to see that. Get his legs under him for the playoffs, but I don't know. I would rather have him play it safe because I don't want him. I would much rather just have him be 100% before he comes back than rush it, try and like go for a deep playoff run and potentially make it worse.
I think if you guys have a healthy Jamal, Michael Porter Jr. steps up, has a even better season than he had this season. And Aaron Gordon, obviously Jokic plays how he played this season. I think the Nuggets are going to the finals, honestly.
Okay.
I can honestly say that I can see them easily going to the finals.
There we go.
Obviously, there's going to be other contenders in the West. Clippers, probably the Lakers as well. Even the Warriors, I can see, making a deep playoff run. But if Jamal can stay healthy, especially if he played like he did in the bubble, then Nuggets are going to the finals.
I'll do say this though, because I have obviously been following that series against the Suns. Like, I don't know. Like, I love the Nuggets, but even with a healthy Jamal, I'm like watching these games. Like, I really don't even know if the Nuggets would have won this series with Jamal because of how well the Suns are playing. Because this defense is just insane. It really is crazy. Like, Denver's supporting cast around Jokic is they look like scrubs. They literally look like G League players compared to the rest of the. It's just crazy. They can't get anything to fall except
I don't know.
Jokic, and even
I don't know if
Jokic
it
has
makes
been pretty inefficient in this series. Like he's still putting up good numbers, but like efficiently, not nearly as he has been like throughout the regular season and against the Blazers in round one. So
You know who you guys need back?
who's that?
Jeremy Grant. Jeremy Grant never should have left.
Oh, man. I mean,
Mm,
even him, I don't think that really would have made much of a difference.
Oh yeah, I
Suns,
know.
they look really good, and I don't know. I hope they don't get swept, but it's looking like they will. But I did see that Coach Michael Malone is making a lineup change. He's gonna start Monte Morris and Will Barton in this game.
together.
Yeah, instead of
Instead of who? Who usually starts?
Compazzo and Austin Rivers.
Oh,
I,
okay.
I like that. I like that.
So we'll see. We'll see if that
I'm
makes
feeling
any
a dub.
difference.
I'm feeling a dub tonight for
I
the.
don't know. We'll see if it makes a difference. It might just be completely useless, but
Well, I mean, I guess we can transition to our next topic, which is the Milwaukee Bucks. They they didn't take a lead. They tied this series up 2-2. I don't know if you guys got a chance to watch the game, but obviously Kyrie Irving went down with that ankle injury. Looked pretty bad. Looked like a pretty bad rolled ankle. So as they tie the series 2-2, do you think that they can, go on to win the series? Provided that, obviously James Harden's to come back sometime this series. How much do you think the Nets are in trouble?
The biggest. If Kyrie, so wait, you just said James Harden might come back this series?
It's possible. I don't know about game 5, but game 6, it's looking like pretty questionable.
You better hope he plays, because if you have him and Kyrie out, KD might get you another game just because it's Kevin Durant, but Bucks in 7, buddy.
I'll say this, and I'm not going to do a victory lap because I did say the Bucks would win this series, but like injuries just suck, man.
Yeah.
They really just suck. And I actually don't know if like the Nets need to win game 5 because I feel like I would rather, if I'm the Nets, I think I would just sit Harden one more game. Obviously, I don't know what the deal is with Kyrie, if he's going to be able to play at all or if he'll be fine. But I think you might as well just throw in the towel in game 5 and just see if you can, see if Kevin Durant can carry you to a win. And if not, then you get back Harden and Kyrie for game 6 and 7 and try and just win on the road and then at home. But this is not looking good for the Nets, Toby. This is not. I don't know. There's really no way to say it. This is just not looking good. You can't lose your two, arguably, I mean, your number 2 and 3 players and try and, win a series that's, I mean, the Bucks have really been playing pretty poorly up until this point. Their one game 3 win was not pretty at all. And then today was probably the best game that the Bucks played in the series. I don't know. It's a little nerve wracking if you're a Brooklyn fan, but what do you think?
I definitely agree with both of you. So game 5, obviously they're going back to Brooklyn. That's going to be like almost a must-win game because I don't want a situation to occur where, game 6 we get somebody back from injury and we're playing in Milwaukee. Obviously, if we're down 3-2, that's going to be a must-win game, and then we're going to have to win back at home. At the same time, though, I agree with you, Jorie. I don't think the Nets should play James Harden or Kyrie in game 5. Obviously, Kyrie might say he's all right, but you don't want to risk him getting injured even more severely than he already is. So, yeah, I'm definitely nervous. KD is obviously doing his thing, but at the same time, we're going to need more from KD. And he hasn't been shooting very efficiently, at least the past couple games. That's pretty evident by the low scoring. That's, obviously Kyrie would have helped that, but the Bucks are playing very physical defense. They're just making it hard for everybody, and especially KD. Even though KD's still dropping like 30 plus, it's just not their style of play. It's not their best style of play to play, body each other up. It's low scoring, kind of like a early 2000s defensive matchup. But
they're not. They can't play grit and grind basketball.
That's what I'm saying. Like, they're gonna have to get back to their fast-paced offense, their super ball movement, and without Kyrie, I don't know if that can be done. Like, Mike James is a great offensive talent off the bench, but he can't fill in the shoes of what Kyrie does. And the problem with that is the Nets don't really have a true backup point guard besides Mike James. So whenever he's out, it's literally, sometimes KD's going up with the ball, sometimes it's Joe Harris, and a lot of turnovers happens from that. So
you mentioned the physical defense. I think Steve Nash after today's game said something about the Bucks physical defense, specifically PJ Tucker on Kevin Durant. And he said that it was borderline non-basketball defense at some points. So, your head coach sticking up for his star player, talking about how he's playing football, basically, not even playing basketball.
That's cap. I watched the clips of that he was referring to. PJ Tucker was just locking him up. That's all it was. Like, ain't nothing we never seen before.
Refs were on some other stuff, like voice crack. Whoa. But, like, I'm just saying, like, they definitely missed some calls in there. Should have gone Brooklyn's way. Probably wouldn't change the outcome, but it is what it is. I'm just looking forward to Game 5 back at home. Hopefully that can rattle Giannis a little bit. But
one thing about that, though, with the injuries is that they only have 1 day of rest. Like, they obviously played today, Sunday, and their game is on Tuesday. So that is like a very quick turnaround. You have to fly back to Brooklyn and then get ready for a game. I don't know. It's just scary. And the Bucks obviously have some momentum right now, so they haven't won in Brooklyn yet in this series, but I feel like Game 5 is the game that they have to steal. Because I think if it, like you said, Justin, if it does go 7 games, I actually don't think the Bucks would win a Game 7 in Brooklyn. I think they have to win the series in 6.
I mean,
I agree with that.
It depends on how many of the Brooklyn Big Three are playing. If it's just KD, Bucks in 7. If even one or the other two are playing, then we'll probably give it to Nets in 7. It's going 7 games, baby. I'll tell you that.
Man, I hope one of them is back, man. I really do. But like I said, KD has to step up. I don't think he's been playing his best basketball. And the other role players, Joe Harris, the other game shot 1 for 11. He didn't play very good today. Same with Mike James. Obviously, Bruce Brown made those mistakes. So really, everybody's just got to step up Game 5. That should be the prime focus. And hopefully that'll be a dub.
What happened to your boy Cheese? What happened to Cheese?
He doesn't. He's like off the bench, like getting no playing minutes at all. He's like with the third squad, pretty much. I think once they got Mike James, like they realized Mike James was better.
Well, yeah.
But it is what it is. Also, one quick thing to mention: they took Blake Griffin out in like the middle of the third quarter, and he didn't go back in the game. So I'm not sure if he has an injury or what's going on with that. But fingers are crossed. Hopefully, everyone can stay healthy for the next game.
It's really just crazy how much how like everything just went downhill in this series for Brooklyn. Like you lose Harden in the first like 15 seconds of the game one, and then Kyrie awkwardly lands on Giannis's foot, rolls his ankle, and like Jeff Green missed the first like 3 games, right?
Yeah, he played today though. He's back.
And like you just said, Blake Griffin potentially dealing with an injury. So just so
The one
shitty,
thing
dude.
that could have stopped the Nets is injuries, man.
It's really just terrible.
But I guess we can move on. We don't have to cry over the Nets for the next hour. We can move on to the Clippers versus the Jazz. This is, obviously one of the best series, I think. LA took game 3 after initially going down 2-0 against the Jazz. And I know we already made predictions on this, but who do you guys think will win this series? Obviously, game 4, I think, is tomorrow back in LA. Another quick thing to note that Serge Ibaka will be out for the remainder of the playoffs. I believe he only played 2 games in their first series, but that could be a big loss for the Clippers. But who do you guys think is going to ultimately win the series?
What did I say for predictions last time? I know I said Clippers, but I don't remember how many games.
I don't remember. I think you said 6, maybe.
Well, still going with the Clippers, but I'm going 7 games because even though we saw it last year, I didn't think Donovan Mitchell was going to come this crazy. I really didn't think he was going to be playing like this. And just because of him, I'm going to push it back and say Clippers in 7. I think the Clippers will still get it done, but D Mitch is going to cause them problems. And I'll even predict which games is which. Clips are winning game 4. They're going to lose game 5 to the Jazz, and then the Clippers are going to come back and win game 6 and 7.
Interesting. So they're going to have to play game 7 in Utah. You realize that?
And they're going to win. Yep.
Okay.
Kawhi Leonard, I promise you.
I'm pretty sure
Valid.
I saw something on Twitter. It was like there's never been a team in NBA history that's gone down 2-0. I think either in consecutive series or just multiple series throughout a playoffs and like won. So the Clippers obviously went down 2-0 against the Mavericks in round 1 and won that series. And they went down 2-0 against the Jazz. Again, there's never been a team that's ever come back from 2-0 deficits in the same postseason. So the Clippers would be making history if they win this series. But I don't know. I feel like you're right, Justin. I think they can do it because I think the playoff P is getting out of control a little bit. Like every time, like it's really crazy. If you see, like, if you're like following the game on social media, he misses like one shot and then everyone's like, oh, he's cut him, get him out of the league. He sucks. And I'm like, okay, you guys need to relax. Like you act like he's never like a player's never missed in the NBA. But
hey, Paul George has been playing great.
Yeah, Paul George has been exactly playing great. Not even playing bad. Like at a certain point, it's not even like a joke anymore. Like he's just good. And Kawhi has been even better. Kawhi in the fourth quarter throughout the playoffs this year, in the Clippers wins, he has yet to miss a single shot in the fourth quarter.
Oh my God.
He's shooting 16 for 16 from the field in the fourth quarter in their wins this postseason. I mean, like that doesn't even make sense. So I'm telling you, Kawhi has really been like the best player in the playoffs this year, I think. But Donovan Mitchell, like you said, Justin, he's been coming crazy. I think Shaq lit a fire under him, and he's really stepping up.
I think Shaq lit a fire under him, but I don't think Shaq lit a fire under the rest of the Jazz. I do not have faith in these Jazz. I just don't. I don't know why anybody does. Donovan Mitchell is the only good player on the team.
You guys are wrong. The Jazz are going to win the series.
Really?
No.
Are they?
Jazz are going to win this series.
Well, why? How about you enlighten us then, Toby?
Okay. Well, like Jorie just said, no teams have come back from a 2-2-0 deficits. I'm not saying that they can't come back from that, but the Jazz, and you said Donovan Mitchell's their only good player, but
yeah. I'm just playing.
But the Jazz, they're not going to back down from anybody. And I don't feel like you guys don't give Rudy Gobert enough respect because
Don't even say that, because
Like I was
I have
saying-
been giving Gobert respect all season.
Yeah, I'll never give him that respect.
he's the most effective, I guess, paint defender in the entire NBA, where he can pretty much like stop anybody that's going to the rim on the other team and just make it a nightmare for them. Now, obviously, playoff P is playing like playoff P and not pandemic P. And we got Kawhi Leonard doing his thing. That's going to be difficult to stop. I will say this, though. Donovan Mitchell has to stay healthy. And in these last couple games, obviously there was a few moments where he walked off the court, didn't look like he was, kind of looked like he was in pain. So that's a little bit concerning. But if he can do his thing, and I do think that he is a superstar, then Jazz are winning in 7. I'm saying 7 because they're not going to lose a game 7 at home with that Utah Jazz fan base going crazy over there. So
you might be right about that, Toby, because I can see it now. Game 7 in Utah, they're wearing those, gradient jerseys with the black and the red and the orange and all that. The whole crowd is going to be, doing that same thing with the colors. But then the only thing they got to do is stop Paul George and Kawhi. Anytime either one of them get the ball, crowd is going to go nuts, defense, do. And I think the Jazz, if they can lock down even just Kawhi, the rest of the team is just going to be completely out of sync. Just nobody's going to be able to do anything. Because I really feel like the Clippers feed off of Kawhi. Like, I like Paul George, but nobody really has any respect for that guy because of the whole pandemic thing. So
I kind of disagree with you. I think Paul George is the guy that's going to have to, he's going to be the deciding factor of who's winning the series. Because if he shoots like he did last night, then I don't think they're going to have a problem in game 7, obviously winning that game. But, he can have just a couple off nights like he did last year. And let's not forget, this is the same team that did blow a 3-1 lead to the Nuggets. Obviously, you got to give some respect to the Nuggets, but let's not act like they're not susceptible to folding under pressure, because we've already seen that. And
yeah, you're right. You're totally right, because I did completely forget about that. My hate for the Jazz blinded me from the facts.
I definitely don't hate the Jazz, I don't think. And I think an X factor is the health of Mike Conley, because he has not played in this series yet. He's dealing with a hamstring injury, and I think he's questionable for game 4. So I think if you're the Jazz, you might want to just hold out for one more game and then just wait till they go back to Utah for game 5 and then just roll him out for the rest of the series. But if he comes back and makes the impact that he was making, throughout the regular season, then you're probably right. They're probably going to win this series, because he just alleviates so much pressure, offensively, for Donovan Mitchell, for the rest of the team, because he just makes it so much easier. And the pick and roll with him and Gobert is really insane. It's really one of the best duos in the league. So
I'm telling you, this is the perfectly constructed team in the NBA. I mean, Jorie, you were arguing the Suns, but I think it was the Suns. But I'm telling you, this Jazz team is so perfectly constructed, and you got pieces off the bench like Jordan Clarkson. who are just going to give you buckets, and pretty much nobody can guard them on the other team. So I'm thinking Jazz in 7. And if the Jazz, yeah, go ahead.
Assuming the Clippers aren't the same bunch of chokers they were last year, I'm still going Clippers in 7.
I mean, I would like this. I think I'm going to ride with the Clippers. I just believe in the Clippers, Kawhi, the way he's playing. But I would love to see a Jazz Suns conference finals because those two teams match up together like better than literally any two teams that we've seen in numerous years. Like, think about it. If you run down like their starting lineups, you have like potentially Conley versus CP3, D Book versus Donovan Mitchell, like Royce O'Neal versus Mikal Bridges, Jay Crowder and Bogdanovich, and then DeAndre Ayton and Rudy Gobert. Like those players, like they're just so equal on like every single level. They both have pretty good benches. Like everything about those two teams would just make for such a perfect playoff series. So I kind of am rooting for the Jazz a little bit just to see that, but I feel like I have to pick the Clippers.
All right. Well, it's funny you mentioned that Jazz Sun series would be great because in our next segment, I'm going to give you guys some potential conference finals matchups. What you guys will do is tell me the outcome for each series, who will win, and how many games it'll go. So these are the series that are very possible to happen. I left out the Nuggets and I think the Hawks just because I don't have any faith in the Hawks. But we can start off with that that Jazz Sun series. So who do you guys think is going to win and how many games is that going to go?
You go ahead, Justin.
Jazz in 7. Jazz in 7 is what I had written down. I don't really have a reasoning. I don't know. I think if you put those two teams matched up against each other, I just think the Jazz have a little bit of a better lineup. Okay. I would prefer if the Suns won, but I think Jazz will win.
I don't know their exact statistics. I probably should have looked it up, but the Suns defense in the playoffs has been number 1 in the league, in terms of defensive rating, opponent field goal percentage, 3-point opponent 3-point percentage, every metric they've basically been number 1 in the playoffs. That defense for Phoenix. I mean, they also have played a hobbled Lakers team and a hobbled Nuggets team, so that obviously probably attributes to that. But I don't know. I just like the Suns so much. I think Chris Paul is really on a different level right now. He was just torching the Nuggets defense the other night. I don't know. I feel like they would have a really tough time trying to stop him. And if D Book is obviously going to get hot, it would just I think that would be the best series in the playoffs, but throughout the entire playoffs, better than any finals matchup. But I think I would have to go.
Sorry to cut you off, Jorie, but that Donovan Mitchell, Devin Booker matchup, 40 a night from both of them. 40 a night from both of them.
It would probably be better than the Jamal versus Donovan matchup that we saw last year in the bubble. They were just going back and forth, having 50-point games.
I don't know. That was crazy. Jamal Murray, when he put up 50, he did it twice, right? He did it twice in that series?
I think so.
That, never in a million years would I have thought Jamal Murray was going to put up 50 in a playoff game.
He's like that. But enough about Jamal. Again, D Book versus Donovan Mitchell.
I think I like D Mitch on that match.
It would prove a lot of arguments about who's better. That would also prove a lot of, I think it would settle
or at least support some arguments.
Yeah.
Ultimately, in my opinion, I think the Jazz take that series. I'm saying in 6 games too. I'm saying that the Suns are going to win their 2 home games initially. Obviously, the Jazz are going to come back home, win that game, and then game 6, I think I got the Jazz in that one. But ultimately, I can say it depends on Mike Conley's health. If he's able to come back, that's gonna be a key player. If he's not able to play in that series, then I'm gonna say Suns. I think he's pretty much like what pushes them over the edge and allows them to go to the finals. But I got Jazz in 6. And then we can move on to the Clippers versus Suns, providing that the Clippers win the series. Who do you guys think will win that matchup, and by how many games?
Suns in 4.
Really?
No, I'm just kidding.
Really?
I'm just kidding. No, I think it would probably. I would think I would again ride with the Suns, but probably Suns in 6.
Okay.
Suns in 6.
I have Clippers in 6.
Chris Paul against his old team.
That's exactly why I think that the Clippers will win it.
Really?
Yep. I think Chris, you know what? No, I'm not going to say that. I was going to say Chris Paul is going to be on I got to get my revenge, and then he's going to play all sloppy and like trash. But Chris Paul is not going to do that. Chris Paul is not going to play sloppy, play like trash.
Yeah, Chris Paul is. I think he's. Yeah, you keep going. I got to look something up.
But yeah, I think Clippers in 6 just because I don't think the Suns. I don't think their perimeter defenders are going to be able to do anything against Kawhi or Paul George. I think they're both going to have a field day against the Suns.
I agree with you, Justin. And
okay, keep going.
Well, I guess to piggyback off of your idea, I also think that the Suns. I think Paul George or Kawhi Leonard is going to give a problem for Devin Booker. Obviously, Booker's going to get his, but it's not going to be like easy 40 a night sort of series. They're really going to make him have to work for his buckets. So
you're saying that the Clippers have to put one of them on Devin Booker?
I would assume so. I think if they don't, that would be pretty. Because who else would they put on him? Like Luke Kennard?
They could. They could hit him with a zone.
Yeah, they could. They could run a zone, and that that might even be effective as well. But I don't know. The Suns, they do got some 3-point shooters, so that might make it kind of tough. I still got Clippers in 6, though. I agree with you, Justin.
I can't believe this Suns disrespect.
The only thing I would give the Suns is DeAndre Ayton. He's going to make Zubac look like a bozo. He's going to make that guy look like trash.
I disagree. Zubac doesn't get enough respect. He's nice.
No, Justin's right, though. DeAndre Ayton is locking up that
Toby's guy. Right, though. Toby's right, though, because Zubac is a lot better than people think he is. He's a lot better.
He's not bad, but I'm watching what he's doing against the MVP of the NBA, and I'm saying, like, DeAndre Ayton, it would literally play him off the floor. Like it would, he wouldn't even get minutes in this series.
Jokic had 30 and 20, like 20 rebounds.
He shot 11 for 30 from the field or something. Like I'm telling you, DeAndre Ayton has been incredible against Jokic.
True, but
as good as you can be. And and Zubac is not even in the same stratosphere as Jokic.
Yeah, but they don't need Zubac to score 30 a night like the Nuggets do. Jokic, and he has some nice touch around the rim too. So he's tall. He's gonna get boards. I don't think it's gonna be as lopsided as you think it is, but.
And he's ugly. He's an ugly big man, so that makes it better.
Oh my
god! Wait, who? Ayton?
No, Zubac.
Oh. Well,
oh my god.
He gets buckets. I guess we can move on though. I guess we'll see. I honestly think it's gonna be Jazz versus Suns, but obviously we'll see. Nets versus the 76ers. Who do you got in this series? And there's a lot to unpack here with all the injuries on the Nets side, but who do you got?
It all depends. Let's see. If all three are playing, if all three are good to go, Nets in 7. If only one of the two that are injured, Kyrie or Harden, come back, then Sixers and 6. But if it's only KD, Sixers and 5.
Oh, okay.
That's only if it's KD for every game. Like, they can't even come in and play and then exit in the same game.
The Sixers are also dealing with a few injuries. I mean, it's not like the biggest thing in the world, but Danny Green, who's their starting like 2 guard, basically has he's going to be out for 2 to 3 weeks, I think, with a calf strain. So he's not going to be available for that series, like pretty much at all. And then Embiid's health, I mean, he looks fine, but again, I feel like people forget that he's literally playing on like a torn meniscus at this time. Like, he literally is playing on a torn meniscus. So it's really like that scares me. And you should never like project injuries, but it's not like the Sixers are like at full strength either.
Oh, yeah.
So if the Nets do have Harden and Kyrie back, I don't know. I think I would have to pick the Nets over the Sixers. But again, if they're missing Kyrie or Harden for like any amount of time, because the Nets also wouldn't have home court advantage. So
True.
That would be a good series though, because it would just be, can the Nets stop Embiid? No. Can the Sixers stop Kevin Durant in that offense? Probably not. I don't know. It would just be a lot of offense.
Well, if the Nets have either Kyrie or James Harden back, I think they're winning this series. I think with just one of the two stars, I think that'll be enough to beat the Sixers. And I like throughout this whole year, I've been saying the Sixers are going to be the toughest matchup, even over the Bucks. And I still think that's true. Game 3, when we had KD and Kyrie in Milwaukee, obviously they didn't play well at all. In fact, nobody played well, scoring only like 83 or 86 points, and that's just not going to happen again. Like, it's not even like they were getting like fully locked up. They were just missing so many shots. I don't see that happening again. I don't think the Sixers play as much like physical defense. Obviously, they got a lot of good defenders, but I think it's going to be easier for the Nets to, move the ball around and get open threes, find open threes. I'm going to say Nets in 7 if they got just one star. Nets in 6 if they got all 3. Nets in 5 if they got all 3 stars.
Wow.
I'm saying Nets in 5, and then if it's just KD, they're gonna lose. I don't even want to guess by how many games. They're gonna lose though.
It's tough, man.
Yeah.
It's gonna be. I mean, I don't know. It's gonna be tough.
Okay, so I guess we can move on to the Bucks versus the Sixers. This would be a very interesting series. Who do you guys think will win, and by how many games?
I want this series to happen the most out of all of them. Out of any conference matchup, just because Giannis and Embiid, that's going to be like the paint is going to be a deadly area for anybody who's not like 6'8". Like, don't go in that paint if you're not like 6'8" or big body. Like, you're getting messed up if you go in there. So I think the Bucks Sixers is going to be really physical. I think it's going to be, a lot of bodies banging around, a whole bunch of action going on in the paint. And I don't know. I'm real excited. I'm a big fan of Giannis. I really want this guy to get a ring.
Me too. I'm a big fan of Giannis. And I think these are two teams that are like have been on the cusp of championships or like NBA finals runs for multiple years now. So this would be like probably the most motivated two teams like competing against one another. because Sixers have obviously gotten pretty close. The Bucks have gotten pretty close. And I feel like they both think this is their year. So this would make for a really good series. But I've been picking the Bucks all like this entire time. So I got to keep going with the Bucks. I think the Bucks would win this series.
I think. Wait, who did you say, Justin?
Bucks in 7.
I think you guys are wrong. I think the Sixers are going to win the series if it happens.
Wow.
And I think that because it's going to be such a difference for Giannis, at least when he's playing in a series where KD's our tallest player and pretty much one of our best defenders. Obviously, it's pretty easy for him to get in the paint right now and get a bunch of boards. But when he's facing up against Joel Embiid, MVP candidate, I think I see Embiid winning that matchup, at least physically. And it's going to be tough. It's going to be, like Justin said, it's going to be a lot of bodies banging. It's going to be a lot of, paint defending. I'm taking the Sixers in 7 because we also got to remember they have the home court advantage if a series were to happen. So I think the Sixers win that series in 7 games, provided that Embiid stays healthy. Also, Ben Simmons, I got to give him his respect. He's going to do his thing on defense. Thibault, I think it's going to be hard for the Bucks to score at all, besides Giannis and Middleton and all those guys. But I think Philly can match that pretty easily. So I'm taking the Sixers in 7.
I don't know, Toby. I think that guy Giannis could more than hold his own against Embiid, because Embiid might be he might be the biggest shit. He might be 7 feet tall, like 280.
Don't forget about Brook Lopez. I feel like that's who they would probably match up on Embiid rather than because I wouldn't want to waste that energy, potentially get Giannis in foul trouble, putting him on Embiid.
Even if that was the case, though, even if they did have Giannis on Embiid, I really do think Giannis could hold his own. Like Giannis, that guy, he's big body. He's an inch shorter than Embiid and has way more athleticism. He might not have the strength, but he's got the athleticism.
I feel like though I think they would play Embiid on Giannis, just because Lopez kind of just stands on the arc the whole time.
Well, we're saying for like the Bucks matchup against Embiid.
Okay. Yeah, probably Lopez would be on.
If I'm the Sixers, I'm putting Ben Simmons on Giannis.
Really?
That was interesting. I don't know if I can see that happening because he's probably the most capable defender. But I don't know. It's tough.
I mean, it's gonna have to be him or Tobias Harris, or they just say Embiid get rid of him.
I'm thinking Simmons on Middleton.
Yeah, exactly. Because then, regardless of what happens, they're gonna have one of their 3, Drew Holiday, Middleton, or Giannis is gonna have a favorable matchup. And that's
you don't really need to guard Giannis on the arc. The Nets have been just completely sagging off, and he does shoot threes, but he only makes probably 1 out of every 5 or 6. So it's not even worth, guarding him. But I don't know. And I think, like I said, I think Tobias Harris is just as good as Middleton. That might be kind of a bold statement, but
he's been hooping this postseason. He really has been, I gotta say. Tobias Harris has really been.
So is Middleton.
Living up to that contract.
If I'm the Sixers, we're hitting them with the 2-3 zone.
You love zone, don't you?
No, not even zone. I just like zone against teams that don't have a good shooter as their star player.
Well, they have good shooters.
You can have good shooters. Yeah, you can have good shooters around them, but the star player, if they're not a good shooter, hit them with a zone. What are they going to do?
Pass.
Yeah, what?
That's a dangerous game.
We'll see. Well, we'll see. So that's why I'm not an NBA coach.
Oh, we won't see because the series isn't going to happen because the Nets are going to beat the Bucks and everything's going to be good.
Okay.
Well,
that one.
So I guess before we, sort of wrap this thing up, do you think that the Hawks have any chance of beating the Sixers? I mean, they took
Nope.
game 1 in Philly, so that's obviously was a good indication, but
Nope.
You don't think so?
Nope.
I think Justin.
I wanted the Sixers to sweep. I wanted the Sixers to sweep.
I think they can make it 6-game series, at least. I think they steal another game, probably when they go back to Atlanta. But
yeah, I was.
We'll see you in the A. We'll see you in the A.
I was riding high on the Hawks after their win against the Knicks, and I thought they would actually win this series after they won game 1. But I feel like the Sixers have kind of figured them out, at least on defense. They know what to do. Simmons knows how to defend Trae Young. Thibault can defend Trae Young.
Thibault.
So
Thibault, man, he's a difference maker.
I wonder if he's gonna get the start now that Danny Green is out. That'll be interesting to see. They might not start him.
I would hope so because I don't even think that guy Danny Green has been playing that well, honestly.
Yeah, he hasn't been shooting great, I don't think. So maybe they just go all defense, which would make it hell for the Hawks. But yeah, I think the Sixers are probably going to win this series.
Okay, well, that's pretty much all we had on our little report. Anything else you guys want to add before we wrap this thing up?
I am hoping. I'm hoping for a Bucks Clippers finals.
Ew. No. I'm not. That's the last finals that I would want to see. I mean, it would be a good matchup, but
The last finals I want to see is Nets Suns. So
no, I think I would want to see Suns Bucks the most.
I want to see Jazz. I want to see the Jazz in the finals. I want to see Jazz Nets.
No.
Because everybody hates the Jazz just for no reason. And I'm saying
for no reason, he says they have COVID boy Rudy himself.
Oh my God.
Okay, valid.
They have
I love
Rudy.
though. I love
they have who else is that guy? Mike Conley. I don't like Mike Conley. I don't know why anybody likes Mike Conley. Probably because that guy's.
I like Mike Conley.
Because of Spencer. Spencer's brainwashing you guys into thinking Mike Conley was ever good.
I mean, I liked him before Spencer, or not before Spencer, but you know what I mean.
Joe Ingles. No, I came around to Joe Ingles. Actually, last thing I have to say. Joe Ingles lives in Paul George's head rent free. That guy is in there all the time.
I agree with
all
that.
the time.
Gosh. I don't know. Not last game. Paul George was kind of eaten up last game.
Sure.
Yeah, because they didn't. In the post-game press conference, didn't somebody ask him about the relationship he has with Joe Ingles, and then he just goes, "I don't care about that guy." Next question.
Yeah, I like that.
Wow.
Well, like I said, Paul George just has to. If he continues to shoot the way he was, then they're going to win the series. But I don't think that's going to happen.
See next. This time next week, we'll probably know who's in the conference finals for the most part. So
yes, sir.
I love it. NBA playoff basketball, baby.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, I think that's a good place to leave you guys. This has been episode 26. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Next week will be a good one, so stay tuned.
From myself, Jorie Mickens, and my two co-hosts, Justin Sadovi and Chris Tobias, thank you so much for listening to that episode of the Fullcourt Report NBA show. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at FullCReport, on Instagram at the.fullcourt.report. Like and comment on this video and subscribe so you never miss a minute of action.